It is my honor and privilege to welcome our governor and each of you to the St. Luke Baptist Church of Paterson, New Jersey. We are a church determined to know Christ and make him known. St. Luke is home to many wonderful people, including Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter, who's not here today, who's the chair of the Legislative Black Caucus and represents the Benji Wimberley 35th Legislative District here in the state of New Jersey. We welcome all of you who share with us today. For 95 years, St. Luke has been a servant congregation here in the Silk City. We are committed to positively impacting our community through our worship, our witness, and our work. We are honored to host this important event today and look forward to the efforts that they will produce to make our city and other urban centers a safer and better place in which to live. Receive now our Congressman, Paterson's own, Congressman Bill Pascrell.
My pastor. That's what my pastor says in my church that I go to. You belong to St. Luke's? Pastor, thank you. Governor, we're honored to have you here. We're honored. You're honored for our governor. I'm going to introduce Madam Dynamite in a few moments. Paterson's own, and Ashante Johnson. So many people know who you are, not because you're famous, but because of who you are. And we're glad you joined us today to speak a few words. It's a very important subject. The governor's taken a bold move today. Bold move. What the federal government sleeps on, the governor does. I don't think enough of us appreciate that. We assume it. My brothers who are also officials in our state. It's good to see people I haven't seen in a little while. Our state senator, Wimberley, Sumter. These are people of quality. I don't live too far from this church. It has a lot to offer. Helped a lot of people. And today we're going to talk about a subject which is critical to our city and many other cities throughout America. We do a lot of talking about the subject when people get shot. But we don't want to talk about the preface of what we need to do to stop it. It's obvious that the strategies that we have taken don't work, and we cannot get agreement, cannot get resolved. So a lot of us have put legislation in, but we seem to be walking in place, marching in place. We cannot accept that. None of us should. So the extremes of where we started from to stop, to get in the way of this epidemic, has continued. So we maybe have to do other things and change other strategies to get to the goal line. We've gotten a lot of money for the city of Paterson and other cities throughout the United States. Nothing has done the trick. It's not trickiness that we're into. So we need to think about this. We need to come together and not treat anybody as our enemy, but as a potential person that's going to walk alongside of me to end the violence. And that violence is no longer confined to the cities, which was predicted 30 years ago. That's not the only place where crime occurs, and violence occurs, and the use of weapons occurs. And so we're here today to listen to the governor and his plan. This startling surge of gun violence is not going to end by itself. And I think we can take some comfort in the fact that there are people like the great Governor Murphy in this state that has stepped ahead, gone ahead of most of the governors. And yet there are many things coming out of the governors throughout the United States, Republican and Democrat. But we have our own governor who's not going to take no for an answer. I wholeheartedly support what he will present today, and we'll let him present it, not me. The other thing I want to talk to you about, I think, and before I introduce Ashante, is that this is in protection of our law enforcement officers. They're out front in terms of law enforcement. Yet, in many instances, they are outgunned on the street. These are the people that keep the peace. And we know as we go through police reforms, and the ones that make sense, the ones that don't make sense, many things have to change. Well, you can't take the soul out of each department. They must be respected like everybody else and be accountable like everybody else. We're not backing off that accountability. And they don't want us to. And they don't want us to. So today, a young lady who is a member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Ashante Johnson is a 22-year-old Patersonian, high school graduate of Roosevelt and Rutgers University last May. She graduated cum laude. Yeah, people from Paterson graduate cum laude. Don't make them any better than anybody else. But why should people be even shocked about that, right, Shanta? Or people went to an Ivy League school. Big deal. We know Paterson students that graduated from Bloomfield College. That's great. That would have never had a chance to go to school. We should be proud of this. We want more of our students to go to school, above high school, do their own thing in the arts, in the sciences, in the STEM programs. You don't have to go to college, but we encourage it. You had a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. And video production, right? Okay. She loves the arts. She's been a songwriter, a playwright, and a spoken word artist since a young child. We are so proud of her. And give a St. Luke's welcome, which is always here for guests. She's no guest here. She's solid rock. Let's give a big hand for Ashante Johnson.
Good morning, everyone. Can I take the mic? It's always a blessing to be in the house of the Lord and in the presence of my brothers and sisters, and again to be with the governor of the state of New Jersey, Governor Murphy. So I will be presenting to you a spoken word piece that I have written for this event. And it is titled Peace. There was a time in all of our lives that we have longed for something. At the age of 9, I could tell you I wanted a pink phone or nothing. When my uncle reached his prime, a degree from New York University is what kept him studying. I know you wanted something so bad that at some point it kept you hustling, longing for something tangible. Maybe it was a miracle or even a God-given blessing, like healing over our bodies or prayers to keep our communities from learning the same harsh lessons, repeating the same mistakes, and resulting in our babies asking traumatic questions like, why can't I walk to the store on this nice day? And what is a weapon? I can't go to the mall with my friends, not even to church on a Friday night for worship sessions. I know they say no weapon formed against me shall prosper. I learned that at Bible study in a second. So my God will protect us, right? Are you sure I have to stay in a house and risk depression? Are you sure it's that dangerous outside? I mean, people love people, right? I think you're overreacting. Wow. This is too much, and my thoughts has led to this confession. I've learned about the history of our city and all of its surroundings. I appreciate you sheltering me, Mom, but I don't think that it's fair that my joy should ever have to be threatened, all because senses of rage has overflown in our direction. I don't think we're too bad. We just don't understand how to give proper use of our expressions. And I honestly believe it's just a problem of aggression. Please don't fear I'll grow to be a person of violence. I won't be a product of my environment. At least not in a negative way, because our future will have game changers like you and I coming out of retirement. Yes, it's a problem bigger than all of us, but I know we can tackle the gun violence, put a bullet to the disease. I hope y'all are buying it. Believe that it can cease like fires and lightning. Put a stop to the feed of feeding non-benevolent characters. If you work with me and trust in the dream that we for a while been lying in, it won't be a far reach. All it takes is just some ironing. In our personal silent speech, we have all longed for something. I never thought that it would be peace, because we've all been through something. But a long cry out in the streets are roaming and erupting. The cry is from the strong and the weak. It's identical and it's touching every soul that has feet. And we walk in that pain that's tumbling down in our spirits. We've got to think of something that can help successfully sweep all the factors of defeat that have taken over in the past sections. But until we can complete the goal of that redemption, let us continue to go forward until we're all on one accord that hate and violence is no longer accepted in the city of Paterson, in the state of New Jersey. Governor Murphy has made plans like holding the gun industry accountable. No more heartbreaking headlines or bad news from coroners or constables. Plans are put in place, and we may have ways to go, but a safer New Jersey is most precious and even more powerful. A dream and a vision, guns down is the goal. And whatever it takes, it'll be achieved with a vow and a vote to remain on one accord. And that's to have love over hate, making friends with even our foes, saying okay to peace, and leaving the violence down below. Thank you.
Talk about a short straw, having to follow that. Wow, let's hear it one more time for Ashanti. Man. Wow. Most important thing I'm going to say in this sanctuary is I want to give glory and honor to God. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. My deepest thanks to this guy, my friend, Pastor Kenneth Clayton, for opening the doors of St. Luke Baptist Church for all of us this morning. I reminded him that I visited him on Thanksgiving Eve, 2014. It was literally cold, dark, and lonely. And figuratively, it was cold, dark, and lonely for me as an electoral matter. And this guy took a meeting with me, didn't have to, and I will never forget that. Thank you. This church has stood at the forefront of change. It has been a bright beacon of hope and faith for 95 years. And I thank you, Pastor, for all you do to keep this legacy alive. God bless you. And I thank you and so many of your brothers and sisters from across our faith communities for your steadfast support of our efforts to end the epidemic of gun violence. And by the way, while we're at it, how about the music ministry here at St. Luke's? Another tough act to follow for us. I also want to thank Paterson's mayor right in front of me, Mr. Met, Mayor Andre Sayegh, for welcoming me and my team so graciously back to the Silk City. Mayor, you have similarly been a steadfast partner in so much, but especially in our ongoing fight against gun violence, and I'm grateful for your leadership. And I am just as grateful for the leadership of the person two to your left in the United States Capitol, by Congressman and Paterson's own, the one and only Bill Pascrell, one of the toughest fighters for Paterson and New Jersey that you will ever meet. And in between the mayor and the congressman, we just heard from her, Ashante Johnson. Thank you again as well for your, The words Ashante Johnson are like a human applause sign, rightfully so. Thank you as well for your inspiring, incredible words this morning and for reminding us that while we may take on these fights in the here and now, we take them on to make things better for the next generation of New Jerseyans. We're joined by a cavalcade of stars. I've mentioned some of them already. Senator Nellie Poe is with us. Senator Joe Cryan, bless you both. I know the majority leader, Senator Ruiz, wanted to be here, and she sends her best wishes. Paterson's own Assemblyman, Coach Benji Wimberly. I know this is Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter's church, so I want to give her a shout out in absentia. Mila J.C., you're here, I believe. Mila, great to see you. Verlina Reynolds-Jackson, Reginald Atkins, all from the Assembly. Bless you all. They have put their names, I might add, on many, both in the Senate and Assembly, on many of the common sense gun laws that we have enacted over the past 4+ years and are continuing the fight today. And I and we owe them a huge debt of gratitude and our heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you. With us as well, we've got Acting Attorney General Matt Platkin. Thank you for your leadership. Our Chief Counsel, Paramel Garg, to his right. I'm told Lieutenant Colonel Fritz Frage is with us. I haven't seen Fritz, you here? Where are you, man? Good to see you again. Thank you. So much of what we seek to do is, as the Congressman said, is also about empowering law enforcement and getting illegal guns off our streets. As Fritz knows, yesterday, Matt and I were together to announce a second class of state troopers for this year. Our troopers are at the forefront of the efforts and partnerships to get guns off our streets at all levels of law enforcement, I might add, including right here in Paterson and in Passaic County. Now let's make sure that they have the tools they need to keep our communities safe. I'm also incredibly honored to have a bunch of mayors with us. Mayor Dwayne Warren of the City of Orange, Ted Green of East Orange, Donald Shaw of Roselle. I think his council president, Denise Wilkerson, is with us. To each and every you guys, I thank you all and your colleagues for your support and leadership. You all know firsthand gun violence, the impact that gun violence has in your communities, and you've been to far too many funerals of lives cut short. We also have, representing the county, at a minimum, we've got 2 commissioners here, Terry Duffy and Pat Lepore. Thank you guys for your leadership. As I mentioned, all members of law enforcement, God bless you all, stay safe. And of course, we would be nowhere without the tremendous efforts and support of all the advocates with us here today and those throughout our state. Whether you fight as part of the Everytown and Moms Demand Army, or with Giffords, or the Brady Campaign, or the organizations within your home communities like Newark Street Team, the Paterson Healing Collaborative, the Jersey City Anti-Violence Coalition, the Hudson Partnership, among so many others. I am humbled and grateful for all you do each and every day. I know that whenever I look out into the sea of T-shirts, as I was referencing privately earlier, it's going to be a good day. So to each and every one of the advocates, thank you all for everything you do. Amen. And indeed, we're going to make this a good day for New Jersey. And before I go on, I want to give a shout out. I don't think he's here, but Bill Kastner, we would not be here today without Bill's huge advocacy and help. So let's hear it for Bill. So 1 year ago, this past Friday, many of us stood together, not even 20 miles from here, at a community center in Newark as we announced our third package of comprehensive gun safety legislation. In the year since then, we have seen 1,359 New Jerseyans shot and 250 New Jerseyans killed by guns. These shootings have happened in communities all across our state, in cities like Paterson, in suburbs, in rural communities. 4 weeks ago, Sequoia Bacon Jones, a precious and beautiful 9-year-old girl, was playing with her brother and friends in an apartment courtyard in Trenton. While these kids were playing, adults near them started fighting, and one of them pulled out a gun and opened fire. A bullet hit Sequoia in the upper body, and hours later she died in a hospital. At the press conference where charges were announced in Sequoia's murder, Sequoia's mother said of her daughter, and I quote, "Mom, now all I have are memories. I can't make any more, and she can't do any more. It's not fair." Indeed, it is not fair. No, it's not fair that day after day members of our New Jersey family are being shot and killed. And it's outrageous that their state government in Trenton isn't doing everything it can to stem this tide of gun violence. And by the way, as the congressman knows, there's even more outrage, rightful outrage, directed at obstructionists in Congress, as you rightfully point out. I just looked up. This is this past weekend alone, and these are multiple shootings, and it's not a complete list. Pittsburgh, Stockton, California, Miami, Baltimore, North Las Vegas, Syracuse, Portland, Oregon, Philadelphia, Columbia, South Carolina, Furman, South Carolina. I could go on. Either multiple injuries or deaths or both associated with each of those cities last weekend alone. So this is not a Jersey-only reality, it's a national reality. But back in New Jersey, the bills that we introduced 1 year ago are basic measures that will keep guns out of the wrong hands, will help law enforcement apprehend the perpetrators of gun violence, and hold the gun industry accountable for its deceptive and dangerous practices. These bills, with all due respect, are the definition of common sense. And they are bills that would, and please allow me to go each of them. 1, require anyone applying for a firearm purchaser card to first complete a certified safety course, just as we require, by the way, anyone looking to drive a car to get a license proving they know how to safely use it. Is that not common sense? 2, close the loophole that allows those moving into New Jersey to skirt the procedures that established New Jersey residents must follow in order to qualify to purchase or obtain firearms. 3, require any and all guns not in use to be stored securely in a lockbox or gun safe, right? This is not doctoral calculus. This is basic stuff, right? So by storing them, they don't lead to tragic accidents, particularly involving kids and or tragic suicides. 4, Mandate that all handguns sold in New Jersey be equipped with micro-stamping technology that leaves a one-of-a-kind imprint on every round of ammunition fired, so law enforcement can trace a specific round to a specific gun. 5, require electronic record keeping of all ammunition sold in New Jersey to help identify dealers and straw purchasers. Today, that record keeping, if it happens at all, are on index cards, literally all over the state. 6, once and for all, ban the sale of .50 caliber firearms. .50 caliber firearms, by the way, can take down helicopters. The Ukrainians need them. We don't need them in New Jersey. Who can seriously argue that these weapons of war belong on our streets? And 7, and finally, enact a public nuisance cause of action law to hold gun manufacturers and distributors alike responsible for the damage caused by firearms. That sounds a little gobbledygook, legalese. That's a big deal. We could tie this back to the gun manufacturers. We bring them down unless they behave according to our laws. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, and what Congressman Pascrell knows all too well, politicians beholden to the gun lobby have prevented Washington from holding the gun industry accountable. Here in New Jersey, folks, we can do better. Every single one of these bills is fully consistent with the Second Amendment, so don't buy that argument. I challenge anyone who hasn't raised their voice in support to put forth a single coherent argument against any of these bills. I was proud to stand with Speaker Craig Coughlin in support of this package in December of last year. And like all the legislators here today, he understands that these steps are necessary and that the time for action is now. And the time for excuses is over. Every one of these bills deserves a vote. We know that young, promising lives that are still being cut short by gun violence that happens, sadly, almost every day. We know there are places where residents shudder whenever they hear a popping sound. We know that we cannot claim victory until we stop the flow of illegal guns into our streets, until we ensure that every gun owner fully understands their responsibility in keeping our communities safe, and until we send an unconditional message to the gun industry that we're not going to tolerate their deadly behavior anymore. Now, to be sure, we have together, and again, I want to salute leaders at all levels of government, especially in the legislature, we have successes to cheer. Because in no small part to the laws we have put on our books, New Jersey today has the third lowest rate of death from gun violence among all American states. And we should be proud of that. And yet, third lowest does not mean zero. So we must together fight on. We are just about to enter the season when historically gun violence increases. And because gun violence will not take a break this summer, let's get these bills passed before the legislature breaks for its summer. Let's get these laws passed now so our summer can be safer. Let's get these laws passed now so law enforcement has the tools to go right after the bad actors and hold them accountable. Let's get these laws passed now so we can continue making our streets and communities safer for all who are proud to call New Jersey home. So let's rise together and meet this moment. Let's get these laws passed and signed. Let's keep New Jersey moving forward. It is now my pleasure to turn things over to the mayor of this great city. Please help me welcome the mayor of Paterson, the one and only Andre Sayegh.
Morning, church. First, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge our governor and his fierce leadership, especially during this pandemic. On March 4th, 2020, a little over 2 years ago, he was in the hospital having cancerous tumors removed from his kidneys. And he never stopped bleeding, even from his hospital bed. So he's been fighting this virus and violence for us And so, Governor, I salute you for your leadership. So we have not only a pandemic, but we have an epidemic within the pandemic of gun violence. It was December of 2020 when a 15-year-old young girl was on her porch. Unfortunately, she was struck by a stray bullet. In July of last year, a 75-year-old woman was going to get medicine from a pharmacy and was struck by a stray bullet. In January of this year, an 18-year-old, Robert Quadra, who was just accepted to Montclair State University with a full ride scholarship, was murdered in front of his grandmother while he was helping her with her groceries, leaving behind not only a grieving grandmother, but a mother who mourns to this day. So as a united community, united against senseless gun violence, we want to prevent future mothers from mourning. We want to prevent future grandmothers from grieving. And that's why we have to stand in solidarity against senseless gun violence and make sure that this package of bills is approved. I commend Senator Joe Cryan for sponsoring the Senate version of a bill that will reduce gun violence, and our Assemblyman Benji Wembley, along with Assemblywoman Jackson, who's also a sponsor. Anything that we can do within our power to prevent the next shooting, we must do. Last year alone, our police department seized 219 guns. The year prior, 200 guns. This year to date, we've seized 30 guns. We're on track for another 200. There are far too many guns on our streets, and they're getting in the hands of individuals who lack conflict resolution skills. Not too far from here, Pastor Clayton, last year it was Assemblyman Wimberly who alerted me to the fact that there was a 14-year-old with a semi-automatic weapon. And if we didn't get that gun off the streets, there's no telling what could have happened. So it's not just about the data and the numbers, it's about lives, the lives that we could save. The lives that my fellow mayors, Shaw, Warren, and Green, are fighting for every day on the front line. And so, for the sake of the residents that we represent, for the people that we serve, we have to do everything within our power to make sure that we stop the next shooting and reduce senseless gun violence. So I stand with all of you, moms who demand action, every town for gun safety, any organization, Operation Ceasefire Committee, Pastor Boyer, thank you. Any organization that is on with the grassroots, I was going to get to that eventually, but any organization that stands with us, whether it's the Paterson Healing Collective, like I stated before, to interrupt the next shooting. So this, if anything, can bring all of us together because, like I stated before, it has to stop, especially the mourning and the grieving of innocent people caught in a crossfire. At this time, I want to call forward a woman who is a strong supporter of reducing gun violence in our city, proud Patersonian, our Senator, Nellie Poe.
Thank you, Mayor, very much. It's wonderful to be here. God bless you all. I want to just make a very special salute to Governor Murphy, who has always looked at Paterson as being number one and being able to come forward and visit our city each and every time that he gets an opportunity. So we're always happy to welcome him and to be here with him. Reverend Clayton, thank you so very much for not only opening this beautiful house of the Lord, but also opening your heart and making sure that you work and stay committed to the important things that we all care for. Thank you. So I stand very proud here today with the Governor Murphy and all the public officials today that was named before, and there's so many of you here, so you know who you are, each and every one of my colleagues on every single side of the aisle when you look throughout the entire, but also to all of you. You are here today to not only witness but also support this important endeavor. So to everyone who has taken the time to be here today, I say thank you. I say thank you to each and every one of you, because it's your voices that's really going to make a difference. It is each and every one of you that will help to make sure to be with us and us with you all the way and all throughout this entire time. You know, we are here in New Jersey to make sure, and in this very, very place, to make sure that some of these very new policy ideas, initiatives that will help our state, and especially our densely populated cities such as Paterson, better combat the surge in gun violence in our community. Of course, of those of us who have witnessed too often the real life-altering effect that gun violence can have in our minority and low-income neighborhoods, our communities that we love so much, we must recognize the role that poverty, a lack of counseling for at-risk youth, and general lack of opportunity continues to play in what has become a senseless cycle of death and violence. We must do more. We must do better. Long before the COVID-19 pandemic became a surge in our communities and in the lives of those that we know and love, the crisis of gun violence was a very different kind of public health menace that nevertheless visited death, despair, and destruction on our communities, in our streets, and inside our homes. We must continue to push for smart and better gun safety regulations to protect all residents. In Paterson, we have seen all too tragically that guns in the hands of those with a criminal intent can often lead to the death of innocent bystanders, including young people who happen to be caught in the crossfire. Mayor Saya named a few of them. We know who they are. They were members of our beloved communities. This was apparently the case with the shooting, as Mayor Saya indicated, of the 18-year-old Robert Quadra, and an honor student who planned to attend Montclair State, as indicated, that was killed attempting to deliver groceries to his family. This sort of killings have a chilling effect, not just on the victims' families, but in the neighborhoods and the greater community in which we live. In short, given the likely uptick in gun violence in the coming months, which means that we must renew our energies to push for safer communities and safer streets in places like Paterson, Newark, Camden, and many other communities alike, is one, if one of our neighborhood is not safe from gun violence, gun-related tragedies, then none of them are. And that's what we really need to make sure everyone understands. I am here today to urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisles in the legislature to see gun violence for the clear and present danger that it is, and to get behind the package of bills that help make our community safer against gun violence. Governor Murphy just outlined each and every one of the various different 6 legislative bills. It is time that we take action. It is time for us to act. It is time for us to do our job in the legislature to make sure that we help our residents, our communities, our law enforcement officers, to be sure that we give both our communities, our family, and our protectors, to make sure that we give them the protection protection that they need, the protection that they deserve, but most especially the tools that they need in order to do that. Reducing gun violence will mean taking new approaches and bold and different steps, many of which are outlined in the governor's 3.0 gun safety legislative package. We must give our law enforcement agencies the tools to better track and confiscate illegal guns, while also continuing to urge a greater dialogue and cooperation among and between all stakeholders, from law enforcement to community leaders, to advocacy groups, to faith leaders, and to community nonprofits. Each and every one of us have a stake in this. Let us do it for our children. Let us do it for our friends. Let us do it for our neighbors. Let us do it for one another. I call upon my colleagues to move quickly in order to do that. I want to commend my colleagues that I'm here with at this very moment. I know that Senator Joe Crine is one of the sponsors, as well as my colleague, Assemblyman Benji Wimberly, along with all of the members that you see behind in these front rows. They are truly taking on the role of making sure that we do our job. And Governor Murphy, just know that we are 100% behind you in all of this. Thank you, and God bless you all. God bless you.
Nellie, thank you. That was awesome, and thanks to Mayor Sayegh as well. Please help me welcome Nellie's colleague, and he's been referred to already several times rightfully as a great leader in this crusade, as he is in many. Please help me welcome Senator Joe Crine.
Good morning, church. I got to tell you, what a welcoming place this church is. Isn't it? It really is. Pastor, thank you. Not only for your leadership and for being such a hallmark in the community, and not only just for opening the doors today, but for making those of us that made the journey up the Parkway to feel so welcome here today. We appreciate it very much. To my friend Governor Murphy, I do want to take a moment. We're talking about a gun package today and something that we have to get done in the legislature. But I want to take a minute and thank Phil Murphy for his leadership on something that became a national issue this week. We have seen mayor after mayor, thank you mayors, talk about the influence of ghost guns around this country. We saw Mayor Adams draw specifically to it in just the past few days. And we saw President Biden take a leadership approach with an innovative package that he knew he had to do by executive order because he couldn't get it through the Congress and the Senate of the United States. But we have those protections here in New Jersey because of the leader that Phil Murphy is. And Governor, I thank you so very, very much for that. Thank you. I want to thank my colleagues in the legislature. We know this isn't easy. Not everybody agrees. And it's hard to believe that as you look at it from our perspective. But the reality is, as you just heard from Nellie Poe and we'll hear from the rest of my colleagues, it's not an easy fight. And we know it because we've had those who are on the front lines to fight the issue run into difficulty and obstacles along the way. But one of those is our host today, and I want to thank him. That's our mayor, Mayor Andre Sayegh. Mayor, thank you very much for leading us on this fight with the urban mayors and all of you. And any day is a good day when you're in the same room, never mind the same church as Congressman Bill Pascrell. Bill, thank you for being here, and thanks for all your leadership. So the governor introduced some folks. I'm from the 20th district. We're down on the Parkway down there a little bit, down by exit 141, 138. Different world than up here, different world. I tease about it a little bit, but some folks took the journey and they were mentioned, but I'm particularly thrilled that from Roselle, our Assemblyman Reginald Atkins, our Mayor Donald Shaw, and our Councilman at Large Denise Wilkerson. By the way, in Roselle last Saturday night, we had a 15-year-old young woman shot. 15. That's kind of what I want to talk to you about, because down our way in eastern Union County, I used to have the privilege of being the sheriff. which is why I admire those heroes that wear that uniform so much. And I just want to share with you a couple thoughts about why this package is so important. If you haven't been on a crime scene and responding, you understand and can learn a little differently about the impact of gun violence. The governor mentioned many times the numbers that are associated with gun violence. Shante put it in perspective for all of us. And Nellie and others, Bill, have spoken about the names associated with that. But when you're on a crime scene, and you are responding to a body on the ground with multiple gunshots, no hope of survival, DOA there, pronounced, as the term is. And then you stand, and you're with professionals. And I had the opportunity in my crime scene unit as a Union County Sheriff to work with some of the finest professionals in law enforcement, not only in the state but in the country. Hardened people who saw things that they shouldn't see. Images seared in your mind. And you go and you watch. And then you hear, as family members come forward, loved ones come by, screams, the wails, the horror, the understanding that someone isn't coming back. And you say to yourself, why? How could this be? And really, you don't have any answers. You really don't. The seasoned pros, well, they're a little more used to it than I was. I was just a layman, and I had the privilege of being a sheriff. And I've been there for suicides. Only adult, I admit. But I've been there for adult suicides where people made the decision to put a gun to their temple and end their life. To walk into a room where someone lived with their family and have blood spattered everywhere. To listen to a mother's screams about the understanding that not only she will not have that son anymore, but she won't even be able to open a casket so that everyone could say goodbye. The senseless violence that happens when a gun is used irresponsibly. It's numbers, it's names, and it's far more than that. To Nellie's point, it impacts communities and it impacts our society as a whole. To walk away with those images in your mind and those screams in your head and to say, why can't we do something, is to me almost incomprehensible. We have a couple of the bills here today that we have the privilege of sponsoring. Nellie mentioned them. I just want to talk to you about two of them. Governor Phil mentioned them too. But, register your gun if you come in from out of state. Anybody here know anybody that's ever moved into New Jersey from out of state? Did they get a new license? Of course they did. Get their mail changed? Of course they did. You can't tell us that you own a shotgun or a rifle? We're not supposed to know that? Seriously? That's an argument? That's a debate? That's a difficult lift? No, it's not. Is there a debate about whether or not we should store a gun safely? We just heard story after story, so compellingly told by Andre and by Nellie, about young lives lost. They're gone, in some cases, because we didn't store weapons properly. That's hard. That's a lift. Those wails and those cries, and to the idea that, as the parents said in Trenton, I only have memories now. In this most welcoming church, Pastor, I suspect, although I don't know you well, that you have comforted more than a few victims of gun violence in this very sanctuary. There shouldn't be any more comfort. We're not going to end this today. We'll end it when America and our country comes together with a common sense of values that maybe we want to protect lives instead of worrying about some fake amendment to hide behind. What we need to do here in New Jersey is pass this legislation, pass it before the summer, because those heroes over there that wear the uniforms know, as the mayors who are on the front lines fighting know, we see escalations of violence in the summer. It's a natural part of this. Now imagine it after a couple years of COVID. Put that in your perspective. So why should we do something now? Because there's no time like now to create times that people can be safe in. No more wails. No more screams. No more comfort. Let's be proactive. Let's be together. Let's be common sense. Let's be one New Jersey, protecting every resident of New Jersey. Thank you very much.
The 35th Legislative District is represented by 2 roses and a thorn. You met one of the roses. Another rose is not here. The thorn is my neighbor and a very important part of the Paterson community, Assembly Benji Wimberly. Come on, let's see Benji by put our hands together and welcome him.
I don't know if I take that as a compliment or not, but it is a pleasure to work with Senator Nellie Poe and Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter. To have 2 outstanding colleagues in our district is something that we're proud of to represent the whole district. But I thank Pastor Clayton, my neighbor, who I just told him I missed him at Dunkin' Donuts on Route 20, our regular stop in the morning, and Governor Murphy. And, you know, protocol has been established for everybody that's here. From the mayors to our commissioners to the, you know, my assembly colleagues. I do have to acknowledge Casey, Reynolds Jackson, and Atkins for being here this afternoon. Welcome to Paterson. But, you know, it's been said over and over again, and the advocates for the continued fighting that's going on when it comes to gun violence. I stand today with Governor Murphy to say that I will be signing on to every bill, each of those 6 bills, to fight this. It's just senseless. And it's a fight that we understand that when people start talking about the Second Amendment, this is not an attack on the Second Amendment. That's an easy way to get around things. We understand that, you know, it's not a Paterson or a Newark or a Trenton issue. This is a national issue. When you see a 61-year-old mother get gunned down in broad daylight in New York, when you see the senseless violence that we saw in the subways in New York last week with mental health issues, these are the things that we have to address. But then when you see states like Georgia who are trying to relinquish any type of guidelines when it comes to gun control, we know this is a fight that we have to take with our congressmen to our U.S. House representatives and to our senators. But here in Paterson, as the mayor has eloquently stated and our senator, we remember almost 6 years ago, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the promising lives of Nazare Bug, Genesis Rancone, and Armani Saxton. Each of these innocent bystanders were killed by stray gunfire. Armani was a 15-year-old basketball player that was ranked nationally and had a promising career. Many compared him to the great Tim Thomas, and he was killed, you know, not too far from here. You know, Nazare Bug, outstanding student and athlete at Kennedy High School, gunned down by senseless gun violence. Genesis Rancone, 12 years old, senseless gun violence. And then, you know, Robert Quadre, you know, helping his grandmother with his groceries to go inside his house and gunned down. But what we cannot become insensitive to the mass shootings, as we stated this weekend, the governor stated, you know, from Pittsburgh to South Carolina. But do not forget Columbine. Do not forget, you know, Newtown. Do not forget Parkland. These are when our senseless gun holders or people who illegally had guns or had mental health issues killed our children. And sometimes we forget that. So when we get to, you know, the assembly, when we get to the Senate, you know, just Google that. I remember the Newtown victims coming to our chambers and meeting their parents. If you want to, you know, feel a sense of helplessness is when a parent or when a family is mourning the loss of their child who is no reason. They can't vote on any of this, you know, so we need to make sure that we understand that we have to continue this fight. Of the 1,412 and non-fatal shooting victims in 2021, 62% of them occurred in only 5 New Jersey cities: Camden, Newark, Jersey City, Paterson, and Trenton. You heard me right, 62% out of those 5 towns. So For us thinking that we're targeting people who are responsible gun owners, that is not the case. This is irresponsible. The young lady in Trenton, 9 years old. We have to get away from being so insensitive and say that this is not my issue. This is our issue, because your child could be the next one. Your grandmother could be the next person. You know, it could be any of us walking down the street, and it does not lead it only to these towns. Because when we talk about Newtown, when we talk about Parkland, we talk about these places, these are probably more affluent neighborhoods. So don't get caught up in just Newark and Paterson and Camden. It can happen in Fairlawn. It can happen in Glen Rock. It can happen in very affluent places. So don't get lost here. We need and want to protect our hardworking families, and that's what this package is about. So I will stand with you, Governor. I will stand with our Senate leaders and our Assembly colleagues and say that we must sign these bills into law and get this done sooner than later. God bless you and thank you.
You can't say that St. Luke's doesn't follow COVID protocols, right? So impressive. Benji, thank you. And to your assembly colleagues, it takes a village, and both chambers are here in size today, and it means a lot. So to each and every one of you. Last but not least, before our call to arms from our host, Pastor Clayton, please help me welcome, representing the Hudson Partnership Community Management Organization, Stephen Campos. Stephen, come on down.
Thank you, thank you. I'm here today, I know some of you. For those that don't know, I've been 20 years working with families in Jersey City and Hudson County. You know, we've been referencing the work throughout today, but when you're in those living rooms and in those courtrooms with those kids that have gone down the wrong path, you see stories that continue to repeat. As a worker on the ground in those living rooms, there's only so many times you can hear those themes. I did that 6 years as a worker, then I jumped into the position of this community resource director position I have now. 13 years in another position, creating programming on a bigger scale to try to reach more kids from what we've learned in those living rooms. And you continue to hear those stories because those of us that are on the ground, what we're up against is fighting a system that has been created to oppress many. And our work can be celebrated as one-off programmatic work, but we're redefining and rebuilding a new system because we're trying to find jobs, we're trying to heal trauma, we're trying to heal pain with those kids and those families we're working with. So of course, you know, sometimes they try to divide along that these bills right here won't affect on the ground. But what do we hear when we in those community meetings for so many years from all those frustrated residents and families? Where are these guns coming from? Where are these guns coming from? Where does a 14-year-old that's been through pain and doesn't have direction get a gun handed to him? How does a whole street have access to so many guns that our police are taking off the street every single year? In Jersey City, we hear similar numbers, hundreds and hundreds of guns every year. And here we are in these living rooms trying to direct these youth, and then they get handed a gun, and then we see tragedy repeat. And that is what hurt looks like. So we're here to support, of course, these bills. We want these guns. We want them off the street. But my message today is about what that unifying work looks like. I love that we have everyone here today, from local government to county to state, but a public health approach to curb violence is comprehensive, as we've seen through this pandemic we've been through. We have one of our lead orgs in Jersey City Anti-Violence, you know, with the funds that have opened up from the state, from the leadership of the governor and that unifying work. Right? They're not going to go on the ground only working to grab that gun. They're looking for jobs. They're going to start labor programs to get out there and bring kids in. Right? Our local group, Paterson Healing Collective, they're going right in the blocks. And next week, they're going to be starting at one of the public schools. Unifying the work of healing combined with our school system, and then we work together on a policy level. There's only so many times we could show up for school meetings until we fix that policy that is really pushing that child out of that building. We need individuals like Newark Community Street Team to walk those kids back and forth for school. They're creating it safe for them so those kids don't have to lead to a last resort and fend for themselves. We're working with those kids. So that's my call today for all those that want to divide us from urban community work to, to these policies. No, we're all in it together. There's only so much we could do on the ground doing this kind of work. We need those guns to stop coming in. Let's adjust the policies. Let's get out there with the healing. Let's be there for these kids. And then we've seen how they look at us when we do that work, that unifying work. We hear the feedback from the families that it's about time you came and you're standing up with us. So it's about time. Let's continue to do this. Let's stand together and let's make that difference. Thank you, Governor, for we're going to do this together.
Mr. Campos's words were not only excellent, they were apropos, and I'm going to be very, very brief because he has said what needs to be said. Again, I want to thank all of you for coming to our city and to St. Luke. I'm a proud citizen of New Jersey, a lifelong resident of our city and our state, and as has been said earlier, I think by Nellie and Benji, as pastor for 25 years, it has been one of my somber responsibilities to be the eyewitness of the trauma that gun violence has in our community. I have sat with families, I have cried with them, and I have stood in this pulpit and others to celebrate lives and mourn with Benji and Nellie and others the unnecessary loss of life. We understand that gun violence affects the total community. It takes the life of an individual or individuals, but also permanently affects family members, friends, loved ones, and people who are involved in be they officers or other people. The pain and the hurt never goes away. Ultimately, a community like Paterson and others become consumed and paralyzed because of the proliferation and accessibility of guns in our community. People think of our cities, of the city that I love, as a place where you can't walk the streets, you can't go to the store, you can't go to get ice cream, can't go to the movies, and that's not true. I would hope that, as Mr. Campos said, that we would really come together and be one and unite in the effort to ensure the safety, the health, and the wellness of every city in our state. There's a common colloquialism, actually two that I offer you today. One is talk is cheap, and another is actions speak louder than words. In the Christian faith community, we are challenged by the words, faith without works is dead. As a call to action as we depart this place, I want to encourage our governor, our legislators, our mayors, our public officials, and all of us to work together to be one, to work together to ensure that the access to guns is lessened, and that also that while you lessen access to guns, that you better equip our public schools to educate our children, that you create safer housing and a community of support service that will help every urban center like Paterson and others provide a nurturing community and pathway to safety, to excellence, and to success. In the words of St. Francis of Assisi, Lord, make us a means of your peace. Let's not just talk about it,